Hey, beloved, welcome, welcome, welcome to the Urban Apologetics channel. I'm excited about what we're going to talk about. It's been a while, and this is going to be controversial for sure, but it's going to be a blessing if you hear what I have to say. Because I know that this is what God wants for us to do. Again, this is going to be different. We are going to talk and answer the question, who was Charlie Kirk? What was his platform? What was it all about? The things that he said, right, wrong. And I thought about how I would go about having this conversation. And I decided the best thing to do in order to make my points is to let Charlie Kirk speak for himself. And we will respond to the things that he says. So, welcome. Get ready. Strap in. It's going to be a very interesting ride. It is always my goal to make you the very smartest person in the room when it comes to these topics. One quick caveat. This is for the adults and not for the kids. So let's have this conversation. Turning Point USA is an organization that was started by Charlie Kirk, funded by millionaires, billionaires, that gave it the thrust that it needed, the power behind it, the money behind it, to be successful. People, had things they wanted to hear, right? And, I'll explain that. But what I mean is, when you have a particular bent to hear a particular thing, and someone reinforces that kind of thinking, it's acceptable. And comes across for you, perhaps, as true. And what we're going to talk about is, how does God feel about it? How does God feel about some of the controversial things that have been said? Now, one of the things that started me down this path is I could not understand how we can not celebrate a civil rights icon, but celebrate someone that repeatedly made false statements and created division in the name of God. And I've noticed, I've heard people speak venerating Charlie Kirk in media, people that I've met personally, but no one is talking about the hateful statements that he made. And that was confusing to me. So I felt like I needed to do something about it. Now, I got videos that I'm going to show you, but I'm starting off with just this. We have someone like George Floyd that died, Breonna Taylor that dies, and it was just an evil thing. As a matter of fact, one of the officers that was involved in the killing of Breonna Taylor is living in my area now. Some of these guys that will do these things will jump from one police department to another. And we seem to not have the ability to call right, right, and wrong, wrong. Both of these people died, and it was wrong. Breonna Taylor was asleep, killed based on false information. Everybody saw exactly how George Floyd died. And what we must understand is how God feels about all of this. So, I mean, before I read this, who am I talking to? Well, mainly, I'm talking to everybody, but mainly, I'm talking to Christians. Jesus said, "A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another. As I have loved you, you must love one another. By this all men will know that you are my disciples if you love one another." Period. So as someone who functions as an evangelist, I am very clear that love and camaraderie, that togetherness, not everybody's white, not everybody's black, but when you can have love in your heart, no matter who it is, Jesus says that's a draw. That will draw people to me. Hate won't do that. It is impossible. When there is division, you're making people choose a side, and many people that are looking at Christianity right now say, I don't want to be a part of that. Or they submit to a false version of Christianity. When God is a God of love and has every expectation that we will walk in love, and again says it will draw people to him. So the only thing, what I just put up on the screen, is that Charlie Kirk made one false statement after another. And if you don't know any better or look things up for yourself, you buy into lies. And a lot of times, what people will do, as he did, was put a Christian label on the hateful rhetoric that he's sharing. And someone will say, oh, he's a Christian, so what he's saying must be right. This, I don't know what year or time you'll be looking at this, but Kid Rock has made music about basically being a pedophile. And then he mentions Christ when he does the Super Bowl alternative halftime show. And all of a sudden he's righteous. It's not the way we're supposed to walk this thing out. Let's look at this, and we'll talk on the other side. We'll deal with our first issue.
It's very simple. You guys can use this definition anytime you want. It's called anything you don't like racist until you control it. That's critical race theory, right? That's racist, that's racist, that's racist, give me the keys. That's racist, that's racist, that's racist, give me the keys. And you see that happen time and time and time again. And I said this yesterday, and I'll say it again. I can't stand talking about race. It drives me nuts. You know, the media, they do their typical thing. Like, oh, yeah, Charlie's a racist. Yeah, whatever. Okay, go get a life. And by the way, that's the way you should react. That's the way you should react. It means nothing to be called that from the media. It means nothing. You know who you are. Your friends know who you are. Your parents know who you are. Make their attacks fall flat. As soon as you listen to them, you give them power. And by the way, racism goes both ways. You can be racist against white people, you can be racist against black people, and it's happening all the time. And it's wrong and it's evil and it's terrible. But guess what? We have a supply and demand problem with racism in America. Meaning we have an incredible demand to find racism everywhere, yet the supply is so low because we're the least racist country ever to exist in the history of the world.
Okay. There's a lot to unpack there. First of all, we're not the least racist country in the world. We had slaves, stole people from their homes, and made them build this country. And then the Supreme Court said that we were never intended to be citizens, so a free man in the Dred Scott case couldn't even sue for his freedom because the government of the United States said black folks aren't supposed to be equal, aren't supposed to have rights. Oh man, there's just so much there. But let me deal with the issue of critical race theory. Listen, beloved. Man. You know, I've had people tell me this is a waste of time because people aren't going to listen. Oh, gosh. I got to get the energy for this one. Listen to me. Critical race theory. I'll reinforce it in just a second. Critical race theory is not taught in schools. I am a researcher by trade. I repeat that to people all the time because I'm a professional. I understand that. But this is something you can Google. Critical race theory and some form of it is not taught in school. It's actually not taught in college, in undergrad. It's actually not taught in grad school as a general rule. It's taught in law school, period. I probably should repeat that about 5 times so that I can sink in. Critical race theory is not being taught in schools. Look at that picture. People are all riled up about something that doesn't even exist. It baffles my mind. It really does. It doesn't exist. And the design of critical race theory, I'm going to repeat it in just a second. It was to study race, discrimination, and its effects as it pertains to law. You get someone that's on the news and repeats some lie over and over again, and people... I'm not trying to be insulting, but we've got to stop being gullible to anything people say, even if it's people we trust. Trust, but go ahead somewhere and verify. All the protests, all the stuff on news, I was screaming at the television. They're fighting over something that doesn't even exist. Are you listening to me? I'm ready for my next piece, but I just need that to sink in. It studies systems, privilege, racism, and how it affects our society in law school. People running around and protesting something that doesn't exist. It's an academic framework that examines how laws, institutions, and social systems can create and maintain racial inequalities, even when those systems appear neutral on the surface. It began in legal scholarship and looks at how history, power, and policy intersect with race. It's for lawyers, future lawyers. Google it. You won't hear me say that many times. Take the opportunity to Google it. You tell a big lie and tell it frequently, it will be believed. That was Hitler's whole platform. Right? Joseph Goebbels. When a lie is all that is known, the truth becomes inconceivable. You'll see as I go through this series something called illusionary truth effect. Hearing something repeatedly and believing it. There is a system, and I'll go through it historically in another session. How the kind of thinking that we have in America racially was developed. Who put it in place, why they put it in place, and how gullible we have been to agree with it every time they play the game. Again, I'm not trying to be harsh, but we prefer to be spoon-fed, rather than to find out if something is true ourselves. The system's not broken. It functions exactly as it has been designed. I want to tell you something that I think most people don't know. I have this book, Hitler's American Model. The Nazis, as they were putting together the Nazi Party in the early 30s, wanted to figure out how America was pulling off their Jim Crow laws and behavior, but still looking good to the rest of the world. Still setting themselves up as an example. So in the early 30s, they came to America to study us. And what they ended up doing was taking the Jim Crow laws they learned from us back to Nuremberg and designing the Nazi Party around us. Look it up. They designed the party around us. And at that particular time, as it pertained to the Jews, they thought many of the things that we were doing with our Jim Crow laws and the lynching and different things like that, they thought it was a bridge too far. Now we know they took it to a whole nother level, but their foundation came from America. Look it up. Their foundation came from us. And one of the reasons that it worked is what I just got finished telling you. Repeated false information. Sometimes, some of the research says it can take 5 times, but some of it, if you already kind of have a bent towards that, just hearing it one time Yeah. Oh, this is just the beginning. Beloved, this is just the beginning. We're going to go much deeper than this. I don't know where you're watching this. If you're watching it on YouTube, it is also on TikTok. If you are watching it on TikTok, it is also on YouTube. God bless you. Much, 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 much more to come. Thank you so much for being with me. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.